A Christmas Adventure in Disneyland. "All aboard for Disneyland!" the station master cried. "Our train is just about to start, and there's lots of room inside. Check all your cares and worries. There's still time before we leave. Be prepared for anything, for this is Christmas Eve." The station master smiled. You did not need a second look to notice his resemblance to a certain Captain Hook. Two little dreamers hurried up. Their names were John and Jane. "Oh, sir," they said to Captain Hook, "is this the Dreamland train?" Smilingly, he took their hands and led them safe inside. And then he bowed and said, "I hope you have a pleasant ride." What happened next was something strange and odd beyond compare, for, with a jerk, the train took off and sailed into the air. Below them, with its sheet of snow, the ground lay dazzling white, bathed by a frosty winter moon that made all clear and bright. "Oh, look," said Jane, "there's Santa Claus with all his reindeer, too." And Santa turned and smiled. "Ho, ho, ho there! My greetings, friends, to you! A happy landing, lots of luck!" And then he waved his chubby hand. "Do you suppose," said John to Jane, "he's going to Disneyland?" Old Santa rose and cracked his whip, and away his reindeer sped, and soon they all had disappeared far out of sight ahead. "Now fasten your safety belts," said one. "We're just above the town." And then, before they were aware, the train had settled down. "Oh, Disneyland at last," said John, "just as the pictures show. And oh, there's Main Street, USA, where we've longed to go." Soft strains of music, laughter, and of singing filled the air, and happy throngs of revelers danced gaily in the square. They saw a splendid Christmas tree of noble breadth and height that seemed to pulse and glow as though endowed with living light. And as they gazed at it in awe, it was not hard to tell the glow was made by fairies, all good friends of Tinker Bell. Among the dancers in the square were some the children knew. There was fair Sleeping Beauty, and her prince, and Cinderella, too. As Peter Pan and Wendy danced, they barely touched the ground. And old Geppetto did a solo, waltzing round and round. Pinocchio jigged with his cat, a bit grotesque and jumpy, and all of the 7 dwarfs were wildly whirly, even Grumpy. And all mixed in among the folks who frolicked us to the band were Indians and animals that lived in Disneyland. The children saw a crocodile go spinning on his tail. A monkey from Adventureland sang like a nightingale. A Main Street horse car trundled past. They watched it open-eyed. The horse, who should have been in front, sat cozily inside. "Oh, there's Gretel, look, and Hansel too," folks called to John and Jane. They both looked down and saw they had their peasant costumes on, the ones their Uncle Jack had sent from far-off Germany, and as often as they'd worn them, they were as proud could be. Did you know that we had them on?" asked Jane with a puzzled smile. "Well, no, I didn't," John replied, "but here, they're right in style." Then suddenly there was quite a commotion in the crowd, and to their ears there came the sound of honking, clear and loud. A motor roared, the crowd fell back, an auto came to view. It was of ancient vintage, yet looked quite as bright as new. And who was sitting at the wheel? Who else but Mr. Toad. "Pip, pip to you," he loudly called. "Come on, let's hit the road." The children gaily climbed into the front seat, which was wide. "Oh, this is wonderful," said John. "I've heard about your ride." "Oh, but tonight it will be different," said the driver with a grin. "You get a ride you won't forget." And he slammed the gear shift in, and they careened along the street with rattles and a roar, as though all rules for driving were just something to ignore. Toad's wild, eccentric steering gave the children quite a flutter. Why, it seems they rode the sidewalks just as much as in the gutter. The wooden Indian just outside the old tobacco shop yelled out in fright and left his stand in one tremendous hop. What speed?" said Toad, his eyes aglow. "What super power?" The hand on his speedometer read 15 miles per hour. And this is what the children saw on Main Street, USA. Quaint shops and buildings as they were way back in Grandma's day. The happy shoppers hurried by in Christmas Eve confusion, all dressed in styles of yesterday to heighten the illusion. It filled their hearts with wonder and delighted them to see a glimpse of what the world was like in 1903. The clanging of cash registers. Ooh, it was a happy, busy hum, and it came from the densely crowded aisles of the old emporium. They passed a real old ice cream store where sodas sold for nickels. The market handled everything from licorice drops to pickles. And in the corner drugstore was the same nostalgic hustle as when men sported handlebars and the women wore the bustle. The penny arcade looked as if it would be lots of fun. They wished they had time to see the Nickelodeon. "Hey, what you driving?" bawled a cop. "Are you out of your wits? Get off the street before you scare the horses into fits." The children's last impressions, just before they reached the plaza, was a Santa with his boots off, dozing on a dim piazza. "Oh, Fantasyland is straight ahead." "Oh, quiet, Toad, let's join the fun. There's Sleeping Beauty's castle, and the dancing has begun." They crossed the park-like plaza, then a broad drawbridge that was down, into a courtyard that was like an old medieval town. Excitingly, they climbed the steps into the castle hall, which was bedecked with mistletoe for Sleeping Beauty's ball. It was a vision of delight, its memories booked to keep. Yet all the lords and ladies there were dancing in their sleep. No dancer spoke, and no one laughed as they went gliding by. The orchestra snored blissfully and played a lullaby. And as they left, the children saw Toad turn and softly say, "A Merry Christmas to you all. Oh, and may you wake someday." And soon again they chugged along in Toadie's motor car. "Let's see the Snow White ride," said Jane, "if it's not too far." "Oh, you may not see what you expect," warned Toad. "It's known to change on Christmas Eve, so better be prepared for something strange." They turned into a gloomy cave that filled them both with doubt, and Jane reached for her brother's hands as all the lights went out. They heard a blood-congealing laugh. And then they felt a jar as though some heavy object had just landed on their car. And then as they came around the bend where the torches lit the scene, they turned and saw the Snow White Witch perched on the limousine. "Don't be afraid of me, my dears," she said. "It's only little me. Come join our little gathering and see our Christmas tree." They saw a lacy stalagmite, agleam with precious stones, round which a group of witches sat and chanted, "Jingle bone." "It's Hansel and Gretel!" cried an old hag, and pointed with her stick. "Oh, it's you she means," said Mr. Toad. "We'd better move on quick." "Come quick! Come back!" she shrieked as off they roared, "or else by hooky crooky, I'll hunt you down and make you eat this lovely Christmas cookie." "Oh, a close shave that," said Mr. Toad. "She can't forgive ya for the time you stuffed her in her stove and slammed the iron door." "But I'm not really Hansel, sir," said John, "and she's not Gretel." But Toad winked knowingly and said, "Ha, you know, you really showed your mettle. But let's forget the past and tend to matters more at hand. For far ahead I seem to see the lights of Frontierland." "It's snowing now," said Mr. Toad. "Oh, I urge you both to savor the falling flakes, for you will find they have a dainty flavor." They caught the flakes, and sure enough found out that he was right. They tasted cool and crisp and sweet, but not too sweet, just right. And when they first saw Frontierland, they cried out in surprise and clapped their hands in ecstasy at sights that met their eyes. Around them was a wintry scene, but one without a shiver, although the snow lay on the ground and ice was on the river. The river boat lay at her dock, all gay and colored light, and from the golden horseshoe Christmas carols filled the night. "Who?" said Mr. Toad. "Let's go. I think it would be nice to find out if there's any thrill in driving on the ice." They whirled about the slippery ice. It was exciting fun, and many were the things they saw as round and round they spun. 2 skating moose went swiftly by, as light as featherweights, and bears with mufflers round their necks were doing figure eights. They just missed Slewfoot Sue and Pecos Bill, and made them zip into a line of Indians who played at Crack the Whip. And when on one last mighty whirl the car went out of hand, they skidded through an arch on which it said, "Adventureland." And so, where seconds earlier they'd been by frost bepearled, they now were in the dark and steamy jungles of the world. Oh, tell us, Mr. Toad," said Jane. "Do you think it can be that creatures of the jungle also have a Christmas tree?" "Oh, we'll ride this jungle long," said Toad, "and such until we find just how the beasts keep Christmas Eve, where jungle rivers wind." They sailed through the tropic forest, deep, whose mysteries darkness sealed, until the foliage parted, and a breathless sight revealed within a clearing stood a tree that tapered toward the sky. It was composed of orchid blooms and lighted by fireflies. Around this tree of bloom and light, in simple reverence stood all animals, both large and small, of jungle, plain, and wood. All claws were sheathed. No fang was bared. Each was the other's brother. The tiger and the antelope lay down beside each other, and all around a heavenly scent was wafted on the breeze, while little choirs of nightingales sang in the darkened trees. The beauty of this jungle scene brought tears to Janie's eyes, and seeing this, Toad said, "Oh, come, this is no time to cry. There's still Tomorrowland, you know. And before our tour's done—" "Oh, yes," said John, "the rocket ride. We must see how it's run." And so, once more, Toad's autocar the distance quickly spanned, and soon they rattled through the gates of brave Tomorrowland. "You will observe," said Toad, "that where the rocket ought to be. You see instead before your eyes a futuristic Christmas tree. A streamlined tree it was, of burnished plates and shone with some illumination and keen brilliance of its own. I think I like this best, said John. To me it seems to say that all on earth may yet be well some not too distant day. Now let's go on the ride, said John. We still got loads of time. But Toad just shook his head and said, I hear the town clock chime. I also fear you missed your train. And me? I'm out of gas. The time has come for us to part. You must go home, alas. But suddenly he paled and looked as if about to swoon. Oh, here comes the cookie wench, he gasped. Oh, you better do it soon. Hansel! Gretel! Screeched the old witch. I found you two at last. Stand back, cried Toad. Unhand those kids. And then things happened fast. A trap door opened on the tree, and out popped Tinker Bell, who wafted them both aboard, and as quick as you can tell. And as the streamlined tree took off, they heard the witch to cry, Looky, looky! Oh, I just wanted them to have this lovely Christmas cookie. When John and Jane awoke next morn, with eager eyes they sought the precious heap of Christmas gifts that Santa Claus had brought. What joy and great excitement then! They cried and laughed with glee. Oh, and then they saw the sign their dad had hung upon the tree. Today, we're going to Disneyland, it read, and they said, hooray! The dream we had on Christmas Eve comes true on Christmas Day.